Okay, this is Fam Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Carolyn Sophia Skowron, author, mental health advocate. Welcome to the Fam Electric Ghost podcast. How are you doing tonight?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm actually doing great. How are you?
Doing very well. I want to let people know that we are a featured podcast on the Newsly network. If you don't know about that network, you can use our coupon code of GHOST to try that for 30 days for free. We'll be on there later tonight with an audio only version of the podcast. We're live right now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And then we'll be on a lot of the major platforms that that podcast can be listened to or watched on by tomorrow. Other than that, we have your link tree up there for Carolyn Sophia. And you don't have to worry about remembering that because you'll be able to click through everywhere the podcast is published in the description. You'll be able to click through right to your link tree. So that will be available. But before we get into the heart of the interview and talk about your book, we always ask guests these two questions at the beginning. What motivates you and why do you do what you do?
Those are great questions. And the biggest thing that motivates me is knowing that I'm making a difference and helping kids and making a difference in their life. It motivates me so much because I just want to keep doing it more and more and more and help as many kids as possible and help as many people as possible. And what was the second question?
Why do you do what you do? But it seems like it's just kind of combined with what
Well,
you
yeah,
said.
it kind of like combines. Yeah. But I really think I do what I do because I want someone to feel like I don't want kids to feel how I felt when I was in high school. I want them to have a great experience because it's a really hard time in your life. But if you can make it as tolerable as possible, it would be such a different experience.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of bullying. My own daughter, well, we had to pull her out of our like public school because she was getting like heavily bullied, and she went to our virtual school and did a lot better. But the school
I'm
didn't
sorry
really have
about
a good
that.
response. Yeah, they didn't have a good response with they didn't seem to know how to handle it. So, that's just her issue. But I think it's a common thing I've heard with a lot of young people, even getting into like social media and online bullying that goes beyond the school. And so, like, talking to you, like, we're going to talk about what I have below there is like your book, Unbreakable. And maybe we can start with your story about how did you go about writing the book, or maybe you want to talk before the book.
Yeah, I mean, the start of Unbreakable really kind of was a combined number of events. Basically, when I was in senior year of college, which was 2020, 4 years now, I got into a life-threatening car accident and I grabbed my seatbelt seconds before the accident. Also, when I was a freshman in college that's like beginning of like 2016, I almost had a suicide attempt, but my best friend called me at the right moment. And I realized after the car accident, I had almost faced death not once, but twice. And I was like, there's something to this. And that's kind of where the juices started flowing from there.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because a lot of times, there's a crucible event. We've interviewed a lot of people on the podcast over the time. A lot of writers, a lot of psychologists, therapists, and it seems like they're these critical events in your life, like crucible moments. And a lot of times writers will talk about like the crucible moment that triggered them to get into telling their story or writing a novel or being whatever their action they decided to take, whether it's artistic or from like a service point of view or just an action. Um, and it seems like similar to what happened to you, that you had these 2 points. It's like, wow. And then you start to kind of assess, is like, why is this happening? You start looking at it, like the idea of the looking glass self, you kind of self-analysis.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a really good way to put it. I mean, I always say that, a story comes from a story. The reason Unbreakable came is because of a story, an event that happened. And it's just crazy how everything happens and the stories just build up together. Because after my car accident, I was very inspired to use my voice and to try to do as much as I can to help other people who are silently struggling. I silently struggled with depression, anxiety, and as much as it pains me to say, self-harm for years. And I truly, like, my book was such a healing thing for me personally. And to be able to help more people and help people know that they are not alone, whatever they're going through, there are so many more people going through what you're going through than you think. And it helps you to know that you're not alone.
No, I was looking at your background. You said no matter how hard you tried, you had a hard time feeling successful. Was that kind of like the idea, like the concept of like imposter syndrome, where even if you did do successful, you didn't feel successful? Is that kind of what was going on?
I mean, I've always had people doubt me, and I was bullied from a very young age. So I definitely have had that thought in my head for a very long time. And it's taken years of therapy to get to a good place now. But just the feeling of like, I'm not enough. People don't like me. I don't fit in. Do I even belong here? Like, what's the point of my life? Does it really matter if I'm here? All of those things. It kind of, you know, started from a very young age. And as I got older, I only self doubted myself more. I hated myself and I didn't take care of myself. And I
Mhm.
just started to develop these very unhealthy coping mechanisms. And I just spiraled and just went downhill.
How do you build up like a love, self-love, and the ability to be like authentic and vulnerable as your individual self, yeah, in a kind of a bullying environment where maybe that's not valued? Like if it's not like if it could, I don't know where it started for you, if it was like in your family directly or like outside the family or a combination of both.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I have the most amazing, supportive, incredible family, and that was the hardest part though, is I have the most selfless mother and father. My sister and I are best friends, and it was kind of like every time I left home, I felt this feeling of not feeling good enough. I almost felt like every single time that I left my house, there was this dark cloud that was over my head. And it was like the
Mm.
storm is just keep going and going and going. And that's truly what it felt like.
That's interesting because I mean, sometimes I've dealt with a lot of people that are kind of in this kind of category, like the other, like they get ostracized. In sociology, this concept of anomy, where you're kind of not connected to the group, and it seems that it can happen where like you can have a sense of a safe place, like your home, and then when you get to school, like that's an unsafe place. Where in the workplace, that's unsafe. College is unsafe. The frat's unsafe, and like how do you like start to find your sense of safety?
You know, honestly, back then, I really didn't. And that's why I was so anxious and depressed all the time. I think now in situations, if I ever find myself, in that situation of like, okay, like this is a situation that's not comfortable, I really work on, honestly, this sounds crazy, but I learned this deep three breathing from my therapist. And
Mhm.
basically, like, whenever you're anxious, whenever something's about to come, you literally stop and you take three deep breaths. So you go one, then you go two, and then you go three. And this sounded crazy to me at first, but I'm telling you, the more I implemented this into my everyday life, into my anxiety, and with everything I was going through, it made a world of a difference. I've taught my friends this. Like, it has helped
Mhm.
me so many times. It saved me from
Yeah,
so
it's
many
interesting.
panic attacks.
I think it's interesting because a lot of times in Western culture, people look at meditation or breathing exercise as kind of foo-foo. But I'm a
Hmm.
Buddhist, and that's kind of integral into our chanting practices, and we use it to kind of center ourselves. Because I think in the world today, people have all these triggers, like the wolf's at the door, right? And it's a
Yep.
fight or flight thing, and what happens is it creates all this anxiety. In the Eastern cultures or indigenous cultures, there was a lot of kind of being able to shake it off like a deer that's running away from a wolf, gets away and kind of shakes it off. Human beings have kind of forgotten, unless you go back to other cultures, like how to shake that off, how to actually
Yeah.
use mental and breathing practices and kind of just be able to center yourself. And because it might be like, well, you don't believe in it, or you think it's kind of weird, it's quirky, you can't get your head around it, you can't, I can't do that. I need something else.
Right.
But
Right.
you came to the point where it's like, well, yeah, that your therapist introduced you to the breathing, and then you saw they actually made a difference.
Yes, it totally did. Because, what I realized too a lot through just going through like mental breakdowns and panic attacks and all that stuff too is like it really all goes to your breathing because you work yourself up into this like panic mode, like you were kind of saying, fight or flight. And you are like, you have to bring yourself down from that type of crisis. And honestly, that has been the most effective way for me, and I just love sharing that because I hope it helps other people because it's truly helped me in so many ways. And so I just want to keep passing it on because I just want to help as many people feel good about themselves and less panic attacks too. I mean, if I can help with that with a breathing exercise, I would love that because I understand panic attacks. Like I've been through it all. I know how it is. And so I just don't want other people to have to experience the same things I did. Hopefully by my experiences, they can see, oh, I don't have to go through that. I don't have to do that because she lived through it. So I'm just going to avoid that altogether. And I'm going to start
It's always,
being healthy.
I think it's good about being able to kind of, be able to share and also, you know, have lessons learned that you can bring and you pass it on and this kind of knowledge and you do it because like if once you've experienced anything, this is what like creative people do all the time. Like when you write a book, you're telling a story, whether it's a nonfiction story or a fantasy story, but you're trying to kind of teach lessons no matter whether it's fiction or nonfiction. And when you
Definitely.
can connect, you can, if it's more personal, then you kind of get into your own vulnerability and being cool with it, and maybe I would like to address is like as a writer, you're kind of coming in there talking about unbreakable, and it's a real personal story and its vulnerability. As a writer, was that hard for you to put that together, or was that like very cathartic to put it together?
Honestly, being vulnerable and just being real and I as just authentic as I can be, I try to do that. I tried to do that from my stories and everything. I think it was so cathartic. It was so healing to be able to write about things that I've made it through and things that I know I've gotten to the other side from. And, it's crazy because when you write a book, it's not just chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter whatever. You start with stories and you
Yeah.
start with events and things that happen because then what happens is you put them all together and that's what makes a book. And so the chapter is like really the last thing.
Yeah. What's the narrative? Like I'm a kind of a flow state person. I'm a musician, and a producer, and
No way,
a
I
lot.
sing too.
Yeah, I started singing maybe in 2016, but I had to find my voice. And as a
Yep.
writer, like when you're a singer songwriter, you're trying to take something that's real personal and then make
Yeah,
it kind of universal. You're trying to make
definitely.
it so that it's understood. I think, and it's the same. I mean, you're still a writer. You're a writer, but you're writing in a shorter form. Maybe
Right.
it's 4 minutes, 10 minutes, not 200, 300 pages. But it's still like there's the creative process to be able to pull that out. And, some people are very detailed and logical and like they put things on the bars on a sheet of paper. Other, some writers they flow chart it out, they create worlds, they do it. But then sometimes things come like it kind of comes from like the muse, or you feel like you can tap into it and you believe it's there, and then it
Hmm.
kind of comes from you in a way that's gonna really connect because it's authentic. It doesn't seem forced. Is what I'm trying to get
No.
at.
No, for sure. And it's funny that you said you do music because writing music has also become very cathartic for me. And I love just being able to write my feelings and emotions down because I realized after the book, that was when I started to do the writing and stuff. And so I was like, oh, this is another hobby of mine, I guess.
Yeah. What's cool about a song is like it doesn't take as long as a novel or a
Yeah.
book. So I mean, it can because you can get into it, but the idea is you can, it's a shorter form, right? In
Yeah.
terms of then you can use a lot of expressive things that are like, in terms of it could be nonverbal, or it could be in terms of the notes if you're playing an instrument. And then it's how you sing, how you evoke the emotion can even carry more weight than actual words. It's like how you carry that tone in your delivery as a singer, right? They really can convey, you could sing the same lyrics, but you do it in a certain way, it conveys a
Yep.
different feeling. And
Yeah.
so there's
Yeah.
a lot of layers to how you can actually get your message out. And some can be hidden or subtext or really obvious.
Yeah. No, that's very true.
But it's a cool form. I think it's very cathartic to be an artist. Whether you're an
For
author or a
sure.
musician or a painter, working through each emotion and actually dealing with it dead on. Was that something like writing the book? Were you doing diaries? Were you journaling? Was there like a process to get to where did you suddenly like, well, I'm going to go to the book, or had you been doing things like journaling or diaries that kind of lend itself to moving in
You
that
know what?
direction?
It's funny you say that because honestly, what I did is I had a certain app on my phone, which is what I like had my documents on. And there were many times where I would be with my friends and then I would just start writing like, maybe like 15,000 words. And they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, wait, I'm inspired right now. I need to write. So for me, it kind of just
Mhm,
happened at random moments and it kind of all just kind of blended together. It wasn't just like, sometimes like, oh, I'm going to write. That's not exactly how I work because I don't feel like I get as
mhm.
raw and authentic stuff because once I like am inspired, I'm like thinking of something of like, oh yeah, this is definitely something that needs to be said right now or something like that. And I just, yeah.
That's interesting because a lot of creative people I've talked to, a lot of songwriters and musicians and artists, and they tend to say like, I gotta keep like a voice thing memo with me, right? That I gotta have a guitar with me, like an
Well,
acoustic or
voice
something. I
memo is
gotta have
different.
something with
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I do
yeah.
that for
It's like, but
music. That's like my music tactic.
yeah, but it's like they to just be able to get up and like write it on a napkin, like you're
Yeah.
out at a restaurant, you write the lyrics on a napkin because it just comes to you. And
Right.
I've run into artists
Yep.
that like it just comes in, they just write it on anything, like on a menu, on something. They just put it, they got to put it down, like right when it comes
Yep.
to them. They just like boom, it's like I got to capture that because the universe is like triggering me to get into this, and I can't let it go. I got to do it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's how I am too. I mean, I know like whenever I write songs too, it's like the same thing. It just will come to me and I'll just start writing the songs. And, I work differently too because I'll be able to figure out a melody from lyrics. So I'll start with lyrics sometimes. And a lot of other
Mhm.
people aren't like that. So it's really interesting everyone's thought process on like how they get to where they do. And that's a great thing though, is we're all different. We all think differently. And that's something about me too is I have always been different my whole life because my sophomore year of high school I found out I had nonverbal learning disability, which basically is you're highly verbal but you do tend to struggle with spatial awareness and some cognitive things and makes sense for my driving sometimes for my parking, so it does affect me more than just in math and science as it did in school. It also kind of affects me in life. And as when I first found out that I had this, I was very angry. But now I realize that the reason I'm so creative, it's my nonverbal kicking in. And I'm like, that is what makes the music. So it's kind of cool when you
That's
think about it.
Well, that's the thing. People don't understand the gift. Seems like in some cases people think their gift is a curse, but they just don't realize that a lot of times I've met a lot of creative people that are neurodivergent, right? That a lot of artists I've run into, a lot of musicians specifically, have like neurodivergent kind of issues. It's kind of why they're able to be a musician because they
Mhm.
have this thing that, and a lot of times they might have got bullied or they got people didn't understand them because you tend to end up being in like this other category when you're a creative type of person, and you might not fit into the box that society has where you need to be this type of person, but you're kind of on the bell curve, like they measure people like they're in the middle is like everybody, and then on the extremes you get the Einsteins, you get the people that don't measure, right? Einstein got
Yeah.
D's, but he's a physicist.
Yeah. Yeah.
When they tried to
Yeah.
measure him, he didn't get good grades, but he was
Yeah.
brilliant in physics, so it wasn't a good measurement to measure him. He's kind of an
Right.
oddball, but that tends to
Right.
be the way it is. It's like when you have some talents, you might have some trouble with the social connections of the kind of general society, that how they accepted mores, you might not fit into that exactly. So it makes it more
And
difficult.
that's why I never fit in. And I think that that was part of
Well,
why
I
I
think I
got
lost
bullied and
you there.
everything. But
About like the idea of unbreakable, like for your
Mhm.
title, uh, and like
Yeah.
how did you come about with that? You know, realize you were unbreakable.
So it's funny, everyone has a story for their, how their books came to be and also this title. I was recovering from my car accident and I, at this point, had known if I was gonna write, like if I was gonna write a book, I was gonna write a book, I was gonna need a title. And then one day I was sitting with my mom and dad, and then I was like, wait a second, guys, I'm unbreakable. Wait, that's it. And then that's kind of how the title became because I was like, I am unbreakable. I was like, I didn't die from this car accident. I've been through all of this and I've survived. Like, and I realized that unbreakable is more than just a word. It should be just kind of something to live by because it
Mm-hmm.
tells you that you always are unbreakable. Keep going and you're unbreakable. You fall down, get back up because you're unbreakable. And it's really a resilient way to live your life.
Yeah, I think that's an important like concept because the resilience of it. Because some people like they get distracted by the things that happen. Like life is like like an ocean. Like, and
Yep.
if you're like on a ship captain, like if you only have like really calm waters and you've never had a bad ocean, like a bad stormy, like how are you going to handle that situation when it happens? Like if you can look at the things that happen that seem like, oh, these are really bad things that happen to me, but they're like learning, you know, teaching moments that like a lot of times
Definitely.
for artists, it's like it's the pain that you go through that gives you the depth as an artist. Because when
Yeah.
you learn, because if everything was going well, you might not have that kind of point of view to be able to talk about how to get through the stormy sea, you
Right.
know.
Right. No, definitely. That's a really good point.
So I think it's like it's a lot of times people don't want to look at it that way, but like you can't be perfect, and it
No.
actually perfection a lot of times in music we think it's like the enemy of creativity, like it's like the happy accident, the thing that's unplanned, like the idea that like there's no bad note, but there's an opportunity to like
Right.
evolve the piece. Like
Right.
it's that's how you get the really great music because it like it was unexpected and you took a different turn and like wow that's how you got to that, but rather than like oh I'm
Yeah.
trying to make it the perfect piece where sometimes it's like that's the struggle of actually creation is the fact that like
Yeah.
imperfections are beautiful, and when if
Yes. Yes.
you're a painter you can understand it, like when you're trying to do the layers, like that's kind of point in time. You might not ever get to
Mhm.
that kind of texture again. And
Right. I
musicians,
mean,
we know it when we play live. It's like we might not get to that kind of exact
right.
moment in our career ever again. It's like that's the moment. That's what it is.
I mean, imperfections are beauty. And I think that that's something, that is a really good point too, because I feel like in this day and age, social media has made it seem like there has to be a perfect face. And like there has to be a perfect way to dress and all of this. And like if you don't do that, you're not considered like by society beautiful. Like, if you don't have lip fillers, oh, you're not okay. Like I have
Yeah.
nothing done to my face and I am proud of that and I never will. And I truly think that it's something that has just gotten out of control. I think
Yeah.
people just do it for the wrong reasons now. But some of my best friends, they have it. It looks amazing. And like they do it because it makes them feel confident, not because of society, which is why a lot of people do it though.
Yeah, a lot of times it's like you look at social media, like if you're a young person, I mean, there's a lot of people looking at it from government regulators. It's like this is adversely affecting like teens or kids who are they're growing in their maturity, and they're getting
Right.
these a lot of pressure from things that are kind of these are algorithms, these are people trying to make millions of dollars. They're pushing something that is like it's an idealized version of beauty, right? It's an
Mm-hmm.
idealized concept, It doesn't have to be the standard bearer for beauty is like what this influencer is saying it is. But like if you're impressionable, you might take that influencer's concept and say, well, that's the only way I can be beautiful. That's the only way I can connect is I got to be like this. And then you lose your
Yeah.
individuality or your respect for, like, the secret sauce for anybody to me is their individual self, which is like nobody else, which is why,
Exactly.
like when I look for, I don't want to show me how you can clone Taylor Swift. I want to hear what you have to say. Not that
Right.
being able to sing like her isn't a bad thing. It could show your skill, but show me what you actually can write or sing that's yours, because that's what's going to actually
Yes.
be the thing that we can work on.
That's it.
Because
It's
nobody
so
else
true.
has you.
Individuality. It's true. I mean,
Yeah, nobody.
individuality is a very big thing that no one is expressing anymore in a positive way. And I really want to teach younger girls, especially too, like, you don't need to look like the other girls. You don't need to wear that much makeup. If you do it because it's your thing and you love makeup and you love art, do it. Go ahead. But don't wear makeup because other people are telling you to wear makeup. Do what you want or not. But I just think that they don't have as much of their own opinions because they're like, well, I have to follow the crowd in order to fit in order to be, in the same realm. I mean, I remember I saw this video once where this mom was saying how she wasn't sure if she wanted to buy a Stanley for her daughter because everyone else in the class had a Stanley and was making fun of her for not having it. And so she's like, well, maybe I'll get it for her because it's like a tough situation. You want your daughter to fit in, but at the same time, you're like, but yours is cute, yours is sparkly, and we've definitely lost sight of individuality and just what makes someone them, because I think that everyone wants to fit into society, that no one is really actually willing to take the mask off except very few people, because people are so scared of what other people are going to say or think. And that is something that I have worked years on in therapy, of just not caring, and really kind of just letting things go and not being like, okay, like if everyone else is getting something, great, cool, good for them. Like, I don't need to have it just because they have it, which is exactly the same
Yeah.
thing with, these kids in social media and filters. It's like, just because someone else has it doesn't mean, whatever. And also too, I think it's also very construed with just how people are, is like they think that when they see like one person, they're gonna be like, okay, I have to look exactly like that one person that I'm following. And it's just like, we got to come to a point where people are like, hey, this is how I look, this is how you look, we're both beautiful in different ways, and really kind of lean into that.
Yeah, I think that's a real hard place to be, because so many people are in the comparison trap, like keeping up with the Joneses is the old term, but it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, I gotta have 1,000 likes, I gotta have 1,000,000 views. But like I
Mm-hmm.
always point out to a lot of musicians, like they're always on the trap. I gotta be on this playlist. I gotta have this many plays. It's like it really depends on who hears you, right? It's like you could have 1,000,000 plays, but that could be all bots. But if you have, like, 5,000 plays and the right producer or right person hears you, right?
Right.
Because you put it out there, you could have an opportunity that the million plays doesn't actually ever get, right? So it's all perspectives. Like sometimes the metric number is not equivalent to the impact, and this is what
Definitely.
people are getting. They're totally into the numbers without thinking about,
Mm-hmm.
like, just showing up and being tenacious and putting things out over time. You can get credibility and connection, and
Right.
people, the law of attraction, people who understand you will find you. But if
Yeah.
you're
I mean,
scared to speak, dude, they won't find you at all.
no, it's true. I mean, honestly, that's kind of the thing about social media now too, is like everybody just wants to get the views and all that stuff. And like, don't get me wrong, sure, like everyone wants that instant validation, but at the end of the day, if you post something and you get 3 likes, but that one like is someone whose life you saved, who cares if it turns into 3 million? Because you
Yeah,
already helped that one person whose life is saved. And that in itself is just such a beautiful thing, even if it's just one or two people. And I honestly have had a couple, like 1 or 2 people reach out to me and be like, you've helped me so much. Like, thank you so much. It means so much to me because I'm like, I've helped these individual people. It might only be a couple, but like, wow. Like it makes me feel good to know that I'm making a difference in someone's life. For sure.
Yeah, to have an impact on another human being in a positive way is like, it's like immeasurable. Like that, what you could do is like, so some people have this, everything is like kind of like on a capitalist level of kind of monetization, numbers for profit. It's like, that makes you feel good, right? Because you're going to make money, or you're going to have impact, or you're going to get power, or
Right.
or influence. But the idea, like, what if you think about, what about like the impact of asking your neighbor how they are when nobody ever asked them how they are, right? Or the impact
It's
of
always the
saying,
stuff behind closed doors that
yeah,
matters the most.
just saying something that makes somebody think. Like you put
Yeah.
something out there and it makes somebody kind of, oh wow, I never thought about that in that way, or they put themselves in the shoes of a person they never thought, and they stop being so
Right.
judgmental, right? And they stop being so critical, and they're like, oh, maybe I should like listen more.
Right. Right. Definitely. I mean, yeah, it all just kind of goes back to, again, just being individually proud of who you are and, doing things because you love them, not because of the money and the attention. I mean, sure, would that be great? Sure. But at the end of the day, it's like if you're making that one person, I really, really always emphasize that because I'm like, that's a huge deal if you save one person's life. And like,
Oh yeah,
I truly think that like people need to stop being so concerned about the numbers and more about like just what impact you're making. Because like you said, that one person could be that one person who needs to see it, And so I think people just, especially now on social media and these kids, it's like, stop trying to do things for views, start doing things that are your heart and soul. And, for me, I post a lot of videos about like anti-bullying because I'm very, very passionate about it. And I'm also a public speaker. And some of the times, like with my speech, it's about kind of the building blocks of you. And everyone has building blocks, but some are just, mine was depression, anxiety for the longest time. And now it's like resilience, confidence. But the point of it is it's kind of like a second to self-reflect and be like, where am I at in my own life? And how can I improve my own life moving forward?
what are some of the key lessons learned from your experience um, through your the process of creating your book and getting it out there? Are there like maybe 3 core lessons learned that you can kind of relate to the audience?
Yeah, I would say number one, use your voice. Being able to use your voice no matter who you are is a very, very healing feeling. Now, of course, that is when you're ready to, because I was silently struggling for years, but being able to use your voice and being able to know that you're making a difference, even if you're just using your voice for 1 or 2 people, it's just something you have to build the confidence for. The second thing I would
Yeah, I think
say
it's
is,
important. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing is
I forgot where
it's
you
just
were.
very important. Yeah, I think it might have delayed a little bit. But anyway, yeah, so I would say that. And then the second thing I would say is don't be afraid to try something new because you might find your passion. I mean, I never in a million years thought I would be a writer and an author and a speaker, but it's just kind of where things led. And so truly everyone has a purpose and everyone has a passion. You just have to find it. I really encourage people to really tap into what is it that interests me? What is it that's going to make me happy and want to have like that fire inside? And I truly think that that is a huge thing because it will truly make your life so much better. And I found mine, and mine happened to be writing and, music. So that was kind of mine. And then the third thing I would say is people are going to tell you that you can't do it. People are going to tell you that you're not going to get published. Like you might not get published, this or that. But as long as you have the tenacity and as long as you have the determination, you can do anything. And it's truly important to know that you can do anything you set your mind to. I truly decided one day I was going to write a book and I was going to see it through. And you just have to be accountable for yourself within all of that.
I think they're all important that people realize, like you're saying, there's like the only kind of ceiling you put on your is the ceiling you put on yourself. Because there's a lot, once you really believe in what you're doing, you can execute it. It's only if you don't believe in yourself that you don't execute, right? You don't actually finish it when you don't feel like you deserve to be in that area. Like you don't deserve, I don't deserve to be a writer. I don't deserve to be a musician. So I don't deserve to be on stage as a stage actor. So you're never going to be on stage if that's where your head's at. But if your head's at that, like
it's all mindset.
Yeah, mindset is everything. And it's like because I'm a cancer survivor, and my mindset of like I need to be here was a part of my survival. Wasn't just the drugs and the medical stuff. It's the mindset of, yeah, I deserve to be here. I need to be here. I got a future. I believe in that future. If you put and that when I was 27, I had a level 3 sarcoma, and now I'm 56, and that was something that people were like, "Well, you're not going to be here, but like you can be here. Like if you push it to believe that you have a right to be here, then you can."
Yep, absolutely.
So I think like you're talking about like depression and anxiety, and it puts people into those places where they maybe don't feel they should be here. And like how did you break through that and it's probably something that you continually have to like address. I know that like a lot of things are like lifelong efforts. They just don't, it's not like a 10-step and then you're done. You have to keep that mindset constantly and be aware of it.
Yeah, I mean it's really something you have to just do every day. And no one's perfect. You're going to have off days. I mean, I still have my off days, but on those bad days or off days, I kind of just remind myself that, you're just having a day. Like it's okay. Like you're going to be okay. You're going to be fine tomorrow. So I think that's another thing too, as well.
Yeah, it's important to kind of like put things in perspective because like, like it's not the end of the world because there's a mistake or what you perceive as a mistake or a misstep. Because like, there's always gonna be somebody that hates what you say. That doesn't mean it was a mistake. It could be that person wasn't ready to, that person wasn't ready to hear it. Right.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean it wasn't a valuable thing to say. It's just like their reaction. It's not always like the other person's reaction that should define you. Like you should just be willing to like, okay, I'm gonna live with what I have a right to say it. However, other people respond, that's their business.
Definitely.
I have a right to express myself. And some people feel like they don't. Like well, I can't write because I'm not anywhere near like, like anything like Tom Sawyer. I'm just not gonna be like that. So I can't write, so I can't put it out in the world because there's this whole canon of writers and I don't see myself in that group. And then it's like, well, why not? Why can't you deserve? There's all different types of writing. It doesn't have to be just one thing. So you have a right to get onto the stage.
Absolutely. Yeah. Couldn't have said it better.
Yeah, because a lot of people will stop themselves. I was a big, I was really into the punk movement back because I'm a child of the 70s. And I like the idea of the punk aesthetic was like, a band like the Clash. Well, they came out and it was like, Joe Strummer can't sing like a Roger Daltrey or like Led Zeppelin or like, the classic 70s bands. They had these perfect pitch, perfect singers that had really command of vocals. Then the idea said, well, you can actually come out and if you have heart and soul and ideas, you don't have to have perfect pitch. You don't have to be the best singer, but you just are willing to sing the song and get it into the world. And it doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, because it's imperfect, it was new. It was ideas like, well, you do belong here. You can be there. You don't have to be 5-octave singer to do it. You don't have to be like that. You can actually have heart and ideas and passion, and that can actually carry it over.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how it was even for me with I have one single out called Hold On and Stay. And I wrote that song so that anyone who's in that mindset of I can't do this anymore, or I want to give up, I hope that they can listen to that song and get inspiration of the fact of like, you can hold on and stay because it will be okay. And there will be better days. You just have to keep fighting, and you just have to know and trust that it's going to get better.
Now, how did you overcome like internalizing situations, like and realizing you didn't have to do that?
That kind of honestly just came from therapy and just doing the best I could for being able to say like, hey, like these thoughts that you're thinking are negative and they're not true. How can I mindset, how can I rechannel my brain to think about something positive right now, or to take this thought and to just, throw it away. And that's really the big one.
Kind of like remapping. Like you have to kind of remap your mind, because your mind always goes like, if you have a very pessimistic outcome view, right? Like a view of the world, then you don't think you can actually hit any target because you're so, well, that's not possible. So if you're always in that frame, you're like, how can you ever break free of that? That like you're locking yourself off. And so when you're like, every time that you see people think that people who are successful is just like 0 to 100, they just magically got there. And most of the time they had to break a lot of eggs. They had to do a lot of things. They didn't actually succeed. A lot of the times these CEOs didn't actually succeed with their first business. There's a lot of failures on the rung of success. And you actually can look at them. Those are not failures. They're opportunities to finally reach the final goal. They're the steps on the ladder on the way to success, rather than looking at it like that glass, half empty.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, it's hard to do that mind frame though. I mean, you can be you're a testimony to, like you said, it took you a while to get to that place where you could kind of reframe your mind, right?
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
So, is there anything in the book that you might want to point out that people should take away that we haven't discussed?
I think the biggest thing is don't be afraid to be different. Don't be afraid to be yourself, and embrace yourself and love yourself, and know that if you're going through depression, anxiety, there are still healthy coping. One of the things in my book, I talk about journaling, and there's so many things you can do with that and just healthy coping. And really, the biggest one of all is be kind and know that you are unbreakable.
I think that's important to get people out there to know that. But your link tree, is that how people can get to your book? On the screen, linktree/Carolyn Sophia. And if people use that, they can check out everything about you and then connect with you. And I'm assuming that the link to the book is there. It's probably on Amazon and everywhere else. And I do appreciate you being a guest on the Family Like to Ghost podcast.